Kelron Bellot, a 21-year-old St. Martiner of Kittitian descent, has recently launched his bid for the 2024 general election in St. Martin. Mr. Bellot will be contesting the elections on the slate of the Nation Opportunity Wealth Now Party, headed by Christopher Emmanuel. In an interview with SK Newsline on Wednesday, Mr. Bellot explained why he chose to get involved in representational politics.
I've always been interested in the political arena from since a very little age of 8 when I first watched the '08 US presidential elections. So right there and then I developed a love for representational politics and admired how Barack Obama, a guy like me who looked like me, was able to stand up on a big platform and help persons within his nation. And I really sat down and thought about it. And I wanted to be an inspiration to my community as well. So that really changed my view into what I wanted to become from a very young age.
SK Newsline asked Mr. Bellot about his Kittitian heritage and how this impacts his decision to become a politician.
In my upbringing, I learned a lot more about St. Kitts and Nevis than St. Martin itself. So my mother came to St. Martin from the tender age, although she was born in St. Kitts, she came to St. Martin from a tender age of 1. So she came there and she went to school in St. Martin. And I think she went back to St. Kitts for her high school years. So we have kind of been back and forth traveling from St. Martin to McKnight St. Kitts, where my grandmother, my uncles, everybody is actually there. So it's been a back and forth, and I love the culture of my Kittitian people. I must consider myself one because mommy speaks like one. So the talks and the history, everything is there, from the music to the carnivals to everything. It's in our home.
Yeah, and how much do you think that will impact you, your Kittitian upbringing, impact the kind of leadership that you hope to bring in politics?
For the first part of it, I admire how outspoken the politicians in St. Kitts are, especially when they are on a point, they stick to that point and they fight for what they believe in. And the second thing I would look at is back to the cultural aspect, how Kittitians hold their culture. When you talk about Robert Bradshaw and when you talk about Dougie, you know the love and the passion for the Twin Island nation, it's there. And that is something I would want to embrace and push into the St. Martin culture.
Meanwhile, the young St. Martiner outlined a series of matters he intends to campaign on, including focusing on youth development and opportunities.
If given the opportunity, there are key things that I would like to address: youth involvement and representation for all aspects. Young persons are crying. First of all, when they come back to St. Martin, it's very difficult for them to get a job because they're either overqualified or underqualified. So there is no ground for them at all. Young persons, there are no recreational activities for young people. It's either you're small in the playground or you're big in the clubs. So there is nothing for young people at all. So my main priority, first and foremost, will be my young persons. And then I want to look at our elderly. How could you have someone work for so many years, and when it's time for them to relax and sit back and get their pension, they're still being taxed heavily when they already placed so much into the funding system already? So that is the next thing.
Bellot's maternal family, Maynard, hails from McKnight and migrated to St. Martin in the late 1970s. The full interview with Mr. Bellot will be published on SK Newsline's online networks. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.